Beneath the shadow of Genshin's new web event, something stirs. Unseen? Heck no, it's obvious. Inevitable? Well, they got that one right. Ever since Genshin dropped the new web events, everyone has been going crazy about the juicy bits of lore that new images and text revealed. And the funny thing is, I had just completed the Aranara quest the previous night and had had a revelation of my own that I think ties with what we were shown in the web event pretty tightly. This is Princess Farron, and if you want to know who Paimon might be and how she may relate to the new lore, hear me out. Through the Tales of the Drunkard, Records of Juvien, Volume 4, and the Moonlit Bamboo Forest, we get to know the supposed story of the three Moon Sisters, who are called Arya, Sonnet, and Canon, although we really don't know if those were their real names. They existed since times immemorial and ruled over the Silly race. And this is where I want to talk about the Aranara quest and Paimon. So, towards the end of the World Quest series, Aranyaka, one of the Aranara, Arama, pretty much reveals that Paimon was once a Silly. They say in the ancient stories the Silly were a great race with wisdom and beauty beyond the pale of this earth. They traveled with Nara, humans, and taught them languages and the philosophy of nature. And who taught the language of Tevat to the traveler? Paimon did. Arama then adds that the Sealies that they see nowadays are just empty husks that race left behind. And this is because they were born with a curse. If they fall in love with a Nara, a human, they shall lose their intelligence and strength, and their bodies will regress. When the traveler Paimon asked why they decided to bring that subject up all of a sudden, Arama simply changed the subject. Besides, the importance of this information, I'd also like to note that Arama brought the subject up right after he received the tree's vitality. I believe this seems set very clearly who Paimon really is. And it also explained why she looks pretty much like a child, because the silly's bodies devolve. I'll explain later the reason why I think Paimon didn't actually turn into a wisp like the other sillies that guide a traveler to treasure and their respective courts. Regardless, Arama here hints that Paimon used to be a silly who fell in love and therefore has her current form and lost her memories. Arama gained that knowledge when they observed the tree's powers and memories, as the forest never forgets, as the Aranara are always mentioning. Maybe it's somewhat similar to Ermin's soul. When Ermin's soul it's not being tampered with by someone like Scaramouche, for example. According to Volume 4 of the Records of Juillion, the Sillies pre-existed the Adepti and the Archon War. The ancestor of the Silly met a traveler from afar with whom they swore an oath of union, witnessed by three sisters of the Lunar Palace. And this is where the plot thickens, and we start unraveling the possible connection to the web event lore. I say possible because, of course, so far this is all speculation until we get to know more information. As I mentioned before, the three Moon Sisters ruled over the Silly race, and the three of them witnessed that oath between the Silly and the Traveler. Unfortunately, just 30 days later, disaster struck, and the Silly and their lover fled into exile as the world collapsed around them, until eventually the calamity caught up with them and seized them. Their punishment was to be separated from each other for eternity, and to have their memories wiped without a trace. Now, who do we know who has memory loss and sometimes muddled thoughts? Paimon and the Traveler. Paimon's memory, namely, seems to have been completely wiped, as nothing else is mentioned of who she was or what she was doing prior to being fished out of the lake by the Traveler. As for the traveler, it's if their memories are hazy, as all we know is that they were traveling with their sibling, then they were separated, and the traveler finally awoke from a long slumber with little concern for what happened in the meantime and even before, with this exception, of course, of his desire to be reunited with their sibling. Also, in the records of Juillion, it is added that the graceful but heartbroken Silly and the sisters grew more sullen and withdrawn with each passing day, to the point where their wondrous forms withered away, leaving fragments of their former selves scattered in the mountains and ruins where they turned into tiny little life forms. They had forgotten so much, lost so much, and been stripped of their voices and wisdom, yet they continued to sing the same songs of grief. As a result, still harboring a shred of the deep love they once had for their long lost lover, they will act as guides to travelers who stop in the mountain mist, seeking to retrace their memories of an ancient story in long abandoned ruins, disused makeup cabinets, and now undecipherable poetry. And isn't it almost identical to what Paimon is doing right now? Acting as a guide for the traveler, and even teaching the language of the vat. Have you noticed how anxious Paimon becomes when she thinks she might be separated from the traveler? The Sumeru Archon quest, for example, is perfect to illustrate this point, and also what happened in Natlan as well. Backtracking just a little, I'd also like to talk about what was going on with the Three Moon Sisters before Calamity struck. And for that, we have the Moonlit Bamboo Forest book and the animation commissioned by Hoyo. They say long ago, three bright moons was once hung high in the night sky, their years numbering more than those of the Geo Archon, and their year of birth predating the very bedrock upon which Liyue Harbor now rests. The moons were sovereign over the night sky. They navigated the heavens above in their silver carriage, alternating with one another thrice a month. If the rain was not promptly passed from one sister to the next, a terrible disaster would occur that very day. The three sisters shared an equal affection for their one and only love, the stars of daybreak, much like they did for one another. And only at the fleeting moments when day and night converged could one of the three sisters pass the fading stars and gaze upon the chambers of the morning stars. But this was all before the world was smashed against the tides of great calamity. With time, disasters overturned the sovereign carriage and laid ruin to the holes of the stars. The three sisters of the night turned against one another, leading to their eternal parting by death. Only one of their pale corpses now remains, ever shedding its cold light. In the animation, we are shown the Morning Star, who was a lover of the Three Moon Sisters. And if you look closely, he's very similar to the Traveler. And this is why I think the Traveler, or at least one of the previous Descenders, was the one the Three Moon Sisters loved. Besides, the mythology of the Morning Star is very much in line with the Traveler lore, with one of its meanings being tied to Lucifer. In Christian times, Lucifer was Satan's name before his fall. And as a matter of fact, Lucifer actually means morning star, as the planet Venus at dawn, but also bearer of light. The morning star is personified as a male figure bearing a torch, portraying the role of the herald of dawn, which immediately reminded me of the sword Harbinger of Dawn, whose description goes, a sword that once shone like the sun. And from my perspective, this is very important because the traveler was indeed a star, or a sun, who descended onto Tevat. Maybe he is actually a fallen angel, or to be more precise, a fallen star that was sent down in order to find a way to atone to the calamity that he might eventually have caused, even if indirectly. As for Paimon, Well, here is where the craziest part of this theory comes in. I believe the three Moon Sisters may have left a shell of their power in the sky until a new moon was ready to emerge. And since they presided over the Sillies and they actually witnessed the oath between the Silly ancestor and the traveler, they saved her from turning into a wisp so that she can fulfill the role of becoming a new moon when the time comes, and to once again reunite with her lover in the sky every time night meets day. My theory is that Paimon is that silly whose human form was preserved, although not her original one, so that she can eventually fulfill that role and transform into a true Welkin moon, the moon of the firmament. These were the first ideas that came to mind after finishing the Aranara quest and then immediately checking out the new web event. Of course, this is just speculating and putting the imagination to work. Who knows? Maybe El Dottore is actually building a new moon in Outcry and he's just waiting for the last component, which is the fire noses? Just kidding, maybe. Anyway, those were my initial thoughts. If you want to share your thoughts about this new web event or about Paimon as a silly poised to become the new moon, I'd be happy to know about them. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe. This is Princess Farron signing out. Take care and good gaming. Bye bye.